Hi, my name is Janam Rai. This video podcast is based on my dissertation titled Comparing the Influence of Influencer Marketing on Consumer Buying Decisions in Fashion, Gen Z versus Millennials. In this presentation, I will discuss the background of the study, research questions, theoretical frameworks, methodology, findings, and conclusion and recommendations. The main focus is to understand how influencer marketing affects fashion e-commerce buying decision and how Gen Z and millennials respond differently to influencer content. Marketing has fundamentally changed. Traditional advertising, TV, prints, and billboards has lost its effectiveness with younger audiences who prefer peer-driven digital content. Brands have followed their consumers into social media, and influencer marketing has become one of the most powerful commercial strategies of our time, growing from $9.7 billion in 2020 to $32.55 billion in 2025. Social media influencers act as opinion leader on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Unlike traditional celebrities, they feel relatable and accessible. Followers develop parasocial bonds with them, a genuine sense of closeness and trust. And the trust translates directly into purchase decisions. The problem is that Gen Z and millennials are constantly treated as one unified digital consumer segment, but they aren't. Gen Z are true digital natives with higher impulse buying tendencies, while millennials are more deliberate and research driven before purchasing. Both groups are also increasingly skeptical of commercial content, so perceived authenticity is critical. When authenticity is doubted, persuasive impact collapses. Despite these differences, a very little research had systematically compared both generations within fashion e-commerce. That is the gap this dissertation addresses. My research is centered on three questions. How does influencer marketing affect purchase decisions in fashion e-commerce? How does Gen Z and millennials differ in their responses? And what strategies work best for each cohort? To answer those, I set out four objectives: identifying the key influencer attributes that drive purchase intention, comparing platform preferences between the two generations, analyzing the role of parasocial interaction and homophily, and evaluating the contrast between Gen Z's impulse buying and millennials' more considered approach. The scope follows Demok's generational definitions. Gen Z, who were born between 1997 to 2012, millennials between 1981 to 1996, focused on e-commerce only. This is focused on e-commerce only across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Three frameworks underpin the study. Source credibility theory argues that persuasiveness depends on trustworthiness, expertise, and attractiveness. These three dimensions consistently predict purchase intention in fashion e-commerce. My synthesis add a fourth: authenticity. Ohanian's original 1990 model was built around traditional celebrities and doesn't account for this, but it emerges repeatedly in the digital influencer literature as its own distinct credibility signal. Parasocial interaction theory explains how repeated exposure built one-sided emotional bond where followers treat influencers like trusted friends. That trust then transfers to endorsed brands, often producing stronger purchase intention than credibility alone. The theory of planned behavior links attitudes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control to purchase intention. Both cohorts use similar decision mechanism but respond to different inputs. Gen Z to authenticity and credibility cues, millennials to domain knowledge and informational quality. Platform context matters as much as content itself. TikTok dominates Gen Z. The well-documented TikTok made me buy it phenomenon shows how viral trends and one limited time collaboration compresses purchase decisions. Over 90% of TikTok influencers are micro-influencers whose authenticity drives higher engagement than larger creators. Instagram is the primary fashion discovery platform for 52% of Gen Zs. Its visual features create emotional arousal that lowers resistance to buying before any deliberate evaluation occurs. YouTube serves millennials best. Long form reviews and tutorials align with their deliberate information seeking approach. Nearly half of the millennials also use Facebook for pre purchase resources. The impulse buying gap is stark. Studies score Gen Z at 4.7 out of 5 on impulse buying skills compared to just 2.9 for millennials, a difference with a major strategic implications. In the methodology, I adopted an interpretivist philosophy because understanding how people make meaning from influencer content cannot be reduced to numbers alone. My approach was abductive, guided by the three frameworks, but open to emergent themes. The method was qualitative secondary research, using published academic literature as the evidence base. The strategy was a systematic literature review, structured and reproducible, reducing selection bias. The time horizon covered 2017 to 2026, capturing TikTok's rise and Gen Z's emergence as a distinct consumer cohort. I followed the Prisma framework across six databases, which are Google Scholar, Scopus, ScienceDirect, Emerald Insight, Sage Journals, and Taylor and Francis Online. Starting with 114 records, I removed duplicates and screened by title and abstract, excluding studies that didn't meet the inclusion criteria. After detailed full text assessment, the final sample was 19 peer-reviewed studies. These were analyzed using thematic synthesis, line-by-line coding, grouping into descriptive themes, and developing broader analytical themes that directly addresses the research questions. The synthesis produced four analytical themes. Theme 1, credibility and authenticity, appeared in 11 out of 19 studies. The pathway is consistent. Credibility builds trust, trust drives purchase intention, authenticity emerged as the fourth credibility dimension beyond Ohanian's model. When content felt scripted or staged, purchase intention consistently dropped. For Gen Z, authenticity alone explains 68% of the variance in trust. For millennials, expertise and trustworthiness carry relatively more weight, though authenticity still matters for both. Theme 2, relatability and parasocial bonds, is a distinct mechanism operating alongside credibility. Parasocial closeness predicted purchase intention more strongly for social media influencers than traditional celebrities, whose aspirational distance reduces personal relevance. Micro influencers in everyday context generated stronger intent because product felt attainable. Gen Z forms these bonds quickly and effectively. Millennials build parasocial trust gradually through repeated credible engagement. Moving on to theme 3, platform affordances. Platforms actively shape how influencer content affect behavior. Short form visual platforms trigger effective impulsive purchases by generating emotional arousal before deliberative evaluation occurs. YouTube supports considered purchase through informational depth. User generated content is perceived as more authentic than polished brand advertising, which explains why micro-influencers frequently outperform high production content. The number speaks clearly. Between 59% and 68% of Gen Z reported making unplanned purchases triggered by influencer content. 70% rely on influencer recommendations before fashion purchases. Moving on to theme 4, generational divergence. Both cohorts respond to credibility cues, but the divergence is in the pathway, not the destination. Gen Z processes content effectively and fast. Millennials engage evaluatively and deliberatively. The same campaign will not perform equally across both groups, treating them as one audiences audience is strategic mistake. Next of theoretical implications where source credibility theory is confirmed and extended. Authenticity is established as a fourth dimension Ohanian's model doesn't include. Parasocial interaction theory is confirmed, but extended relativity operates as a distinct peer-based construct the original broadcast era theory doesn't capture. The theory of planned behavior is the least supported. It describes millennials' deliberative, processive well, but struggles with the speed and emotional intensity of Gen Z's platform-triggered decisions. One unresolved tension worth noting is Gen Z shows the highest baseline trust in influencers at 94%, yet the greatest sensitivity to authenticity violations. When authenticity fails, trust withdraws sharply. And this contradiction isn't yet resolved in the literatures and is a clear gap for future research. Moving on, to answer the first question, research question, influencer marketing affects purchase decision through a credibility, trust, purchase intention pathway. When influencers are seen as credible and authentic, consumers are more likely to trust them and consider buying the product. To answer the second question, research question, Gen Z and millennials differ in their response styles. Gen Z is more visual, emotional, fast, and trend driven. Millennials are more deliberate, evaluative, and information focused. To answer the third question, the best strategies differ by generation. For Gen Z, brands should use micro influencers, TikTok, Instagram Reels, authentic lifestyle content, and social proof. For millennials, brands should use expertise-led YouTube content, transparent sponsorship, detailed product information, and value alignment. However, a key limitation is that many studies compare the two generations separately rather than in the same research design. More direct comparison studies are needed. In conclusion, this dissertation confirms that influencer marketing plays an important role in fashion e-commerce purchase decisions. The key conclusion is that Gen Z and millennials both respond to influencer marketing, but through different pathways. Gen Z is more effective, rapid, and visually driven. Millennials are more evaluative, deliberate, and information led. Authenticity is one of the most important findings. It emerges as the fourth dimension of credibility and strongly influences trust, especially among Gen Z. The study also shows that platform matters. TikTok and Instagram are more likely to trigger impulse buying among Gen Z, while YouTube supports millennial decision making uh, through detailed information. Overall, the study shows that a uniform influencer marketing campaign is not enough. Brands need different strategies for different generations. And finally, based on the findings, fashion e-commerce brands should avoid using one general influencer strategies for both Gen Z and millennials. First, brands should select influencers based on credibility, authenticity, audience fit, and trustworthiness rather than follower count alone. For Gen Z, brands should focus on micro influencers on TikTok and Instagram. Content should be short, authentic, relatable, and lifestyle based, such as haul videos, styling clips, and day in a life content. For millennials, brands should use longer and more informative content, especially on YouTube. Influencers should provide product knowledge, honest reviews, transparent sponsorship, and value based messages such as sustainability where relevant. For future research, more direct comparison studies are needed where Gen Z and millennials are exposed to the same influencer content. Future studies should also explore AI influencers and whether authenticity still affects trust when the influencer is not even a human. To summarize, this dissertation synthesized 19 peer-reviewed studies to show that Gen Z and millennials differ meaningfully in how they process influencer marketing in fashion e-commerce, and that those differences demand platform calibrated, cohort specific strategies. Thank you very much for watching.